All right, here we are with another episode of the High Ground, powered by Premier Companies. Good morning, Sal.
Yeah, good morning, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going today?
It's doing wonderful. It's getting kind of cold here in January or February now.
It's February. Yeah, it is. We've jumped into February and on our way to spring. So, hey, we want to remind all our listeners that if you appreciate what you've been seeing content-wise and subject-wise, guest-wise, we ask you to like and subscribe each one of our videos or subscribe to us on any of the other platforms. And we're changing the format up a little bit for 2023.
Yep,
so,
we had a meeting, and we're going to start it off a little bit lively, lighten it up a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to give a little personal insight to the host and the guest. So we're going to do a question of the day.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So
We got to start off with the guest, though.
Right, exactly. So the question of the day, Aaron Bledsoe, is if you had 2 hours to interview anyone throughout history, who would it be?
Well, with it
And
being,
why?
Yeah. So with it being February in the month of Valentine's Day, hi, sweetie.
Oh, my. That is
should,
so gratuitous.
I should say my wife because I never get enough time with her, 2 more hours. But what I'm going to say is my great-grandpa. I was the only great-grandchild that he got to hold. As soon as I was born, within a month or so, he passed away. A lot of people probably pick famous people or historical figures. I would pick him because he's part of that generation that we don't have access to anymore. The ones that experienced the world wars, a lot of the hard farming times. One of the big reasons why I picked him is because his faith. When he passed away, there's a lot of people around they said the line to get into the funeral home was extremely long. I was like, if there's someone like that from that generation that had that strong of faith and that could impact that kind of community, I'd love to spend 2 hours with him just to see how he lived his life. So.
That's good. So the guest can no longer go first anymore because he took one of my answers. That was either going to be my grandfather, or
You knew his grandpa
or Jesus.
too?
No, worse, not any more than he did. But actually, that is mine as my grandpa on my dad's side. I never got a chance to. He died when I was younger, and I never got a chance to talk to him. He came over from Italy, immigrated from Italy, and he was all about the United States, all about America when he got here. Never taught any of the kids Italian of that generation or anything else. And I remember when 1976 came around, we had red, white, and blue ice cream and Happy Birthday America. That's what he was all about. So we were redneck Italians. He settled in Beattyville, Kentucky, and married my grandmother down there. So
You carried the torch well.
yes, we had squirrel spaghetti when I was little. Squirrel spaghetti sauce.
With
True
beans?
story.
With beans?
No, not the chili beans. My wife wasn't around yet then. So, well, back to our host, Ryan.
Well, I'm gonna go a little different route, and not because I wouldn't want to interview my grandfathers because I didn't know either one of them. I had a grandfather who had married my grandmother by that time, but both of my grandfathers died very early. But so he fit the bill very well. The one I did know, and never knew him as anything but my grandfather. But I didn't know either one of them. But I play guitar and I enjoy music a lot. And there's a guitar player from several years ago who died very early in his life in 1974 on a motorcycle wreck. His name was Don Rich, and he was this whole entire developer of the Bakersfield Sound and Fender Telecasters, and he's just a fantastic guitar player. And he was told he played for Buck Owens through that whole time when they were just they were the thing. And Buck told him not to ride that motorcycle, and he did, and he crashed that Harley Davidson and died. And Buck said, my music career died that day. And but man, he was just so prolific in his influence on guitar players all through history that I'd just like to sit down and talk to him for 2 hours and say what caused you to be what you were. Just interesting to me.
So Buck Owens on Hee Haw?
Yeah.
Yep.
But prior to that, he was like a rock star.
Right.
So
The other guy that was on Hee Haw, he was a good guitar player too.
He was.
Roy Clark. He could play lots of different instruments.
Yep. He could play everything. So,
And for you podcast people out there that can't see us, I'm staring off in the white space of the world because I have no idea what they're talking
You've
about.
never seen Hee Haw?
No, I've not seen Hee Haw. Now, let me make one thing very clear. I'm not a part of the generation that ate Tide Pods. I'm the millennials that get blamed for all of that. I did not do that, okay? We were the ones imitating Johnny Knoxville. We might be dumb, but we weren't Tide Pod eating.
Well, you
dumb.
gotta get on YouTube and watch an old Hee Haw episode because
Just Google Don Rich. Just go to YouTube and look at Don Rich.
I'm
Right.
sorry.
Yeah, that was you, Sal. What
That's you, Sal. You're the redneck Italian that got us off on hee-haw. So anyway, I'm trying to be serious.
So much for the grain report.
Yeah, all right. So anyway, okay. Well, that's pretty fun. Well, that was fun. Glad to know that I'm the only one who bailed and didn't go with the obvious choice of somebody in their family. But okay. So next time you can pick the questions, Sal. All right, very good. Aaron, you have a WASDE report. You've been here recently, and this report came out about a week after you were here last time. So cue us up. Tell us where we are today as far as grain markets go.
Yeah, so the January report's usually a big one. They look at acres, how that kind of shook out after harvest, and yield. And that report was kind of a barnstormer this year, but it was in the opposite direction of what all the estimates thought it was. A lot of the trade estimates thought that we were going to have an increase in corn yield, which we did have. So that was about the only thing that they were right on. But what they didn't see coming was acres being shifted, or not shifted, but decreased pretty substantially. I think they lost. Let me see.
The corn acres.
Yeah, the corn acres. The harvested corn acres were down 1.6 million acres from what they thought back in the November report. So, going into harvest. So that was a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, the increase in yield was 1 bushel. So it was a pretty significant yield bump. But when you lose 1.6 million acres of harvested acres of corn, that production side just drastically shifted. They did touch the demand side, but the demand reduction was not as big as the supply reduction was. So you had a very bullish report. The estimates, on the other hand, had us at like a production report of like 13.9 billion bushels. We came at 13.7. So that's 22 million bushels that they had. They were off on the estimates. So we immediately saw corn shoot up. Beans, they had the yield reduction, which a lot of people thought the yield might actually go up, just like corn did. And that went down 0.7 of a bushel down to 49.5. So in perspective, the crop cycle before we were 51.7. And for corn, we were 176.7. So we had drastically lower yields than what we had in the previous year. And we were talking about a harvested acre number that was decreased for corn. So this report, the estimates were this is going to be a bearish report, and it came out very bullish.
Yep. What were the the acres? Did the acres?
I didn't even write them down
Okay.
because they didn't really change those at all. The big shocker was the corn acre number.
Okay.
Yep. So with that production, and there was some demand reduction, but not nearly as much as the supply took a hit. I've been on here before talking about the stocks to use rate, and when corn gets down below 10%, market gets a little nervous. When beans get down around 5%, it gets really nervous. Right now, this is still projection, so they can still mess with the demand. We can still have some demand loss or demand increase. Of course, if we have a demand loss, prices will be subdued. If we have an increase in demand, prices will go up. But the stock to use rate right now, what they're projecting for corn is 9%. So we're not exactly real comfortable. We're a little on that line of it promotes the $6-something corn. The beans were down to 4.8%. So.
Okay.
Do these usually drift lower as we?
I don't know what the historical trend would be. I would feel like in this circumstance, with what my gut says, I think they may tiptoe higher. On the beans, I think they may tiptoe higher. The one good thing we have for beans right now is the soybean meal crush, extremely strong right now. Someone just sent me a link to a tweet that they said, we've hit extremely high meal price for the last 6 months or something like that. So meal is extremely strong, so that will support the bean market. But Brazil looks like they have a very large crop. The problem with Brazil right now is they have a delayed harvest. But I don't put too much stock in that yet because, you know, infrastructure wise, we're a little better off here in the U.S., but we saw how last fall we were a little behind pace on harvest progress. And then all of a sudden it was like 1 week and we were ahead of pace. So I feel like the market's got that already baked into the price, but I don't know. I think once those bushels start flowing out of Brazil, we'll see, you know, we lose our competitive advantage. And right now, Brazil beans are like, I think a US dollar cheaper than ours right now. So if their main play is to send them across seas, they're going to be the winner in this one here pretty soon.
So on that bean meal crush you were talking about, and I don't know whether you know the answer to this or not, but with avian influenza and such a drastic hit to that number of animals that are being fed, where's that going? Are we chasing oil with that? Are we still calling it bean meal crush and we're chasing oil now? Or what do you think's attributing that?
I think that goes back to Argentina. So Argentina is dry. Inflation is rampant down there. Farmers are holding their beans as a play to fight inflation. You know, when you own something and the inflation is skyrocketing, it makes sense to hold that commodity and wait because you're going to get more money out of it later on. And so, in a way, to help themselves, they're holding those bushels back. You know, if you look at 2012, if you had bushels going into 2012 or into 13 from the previous year, you held those bushels because you didn't really produce that much and you kept seeing prices go up. So as a farmer, you're like, why would I sell if it keeps going up 50 cents every other day, you know? So that's where Argentina's at. But with the beans not flowing down there, they're the number one bean meal exporter in the world. So if that bean mill is not leaving, then they got to go somewhere else to find the bean mill. Well, we're crushing it right now. Now, I don't know if the oil has a play in it or not, but I would think it would have to because a lot of people are making a push for that, or at least headline. Not physically doing it yet, but headline news. What does it always go back to? Sell the rumor, buy the fact, or something like that? Yeah.
But that's part of what's holding up our bean mill is Argentina.
Yep.
Just holding on to their inventory. But they can't do that for long, can they?
No. Well, I mean, the farmer can do whatever they want down there until the government steps in and says, we're going to take it. But who knows? I mean,
there's a storage limit. I mean, they can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What else you got for us?
I think that was about it as far as how the report went.
We got locally.
Locally, man, it feels like there's a lot of bushels still out there. You know, we talked about the WASDE said corn yield was a little better than what we thought, but harvested acres were down. Bean yield was down, but locally it doesn't feel that bad. You know, fortunately, being in Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, usually we can sustain a tougher year better than some other fringe markets, I would say. You know, North Dakota or, you know, out in Kansas, when it gets dry, it gets dry. But here in the central part of the Midwest, we're pretty fortunate. I mean, it takes a lot to drop our yields. So it feels like there's bushels out there. Beans are moving left and right. We're seeing hours on the river reduced because they're packing full. So,
yeah, the Western Corn Belt, when they get dry, it is bad.
Mm-hmm.
What as far as the elevators, are they pretty full still, or are they getting moving now that the river's up a little bit?
So we're looking at an inverse again, which is kind of odd that we've had multiple years in a row. It's not that it'll just change tomorrow, but it's a little odd. So when we're in an inverse, the market is incentivizing people to sell and sell now. And so when you get a bunch of bushels from the farm hitting the pipeline, and then you also incentivize the elevators to hit the pipeline at the same time, stuff starts to back up. I don't know. I mean, I think everywhere is a little different, but over in my neck of the woods, still feels like there's a lot of corn bushels out there. Beans, I think, have moved really quickly, like the market is trying to get them out. So I think that's where we're at over there. You know, last time I was on here, I talked about how beans were $1 something higher than what they were this time last year. That script changed in just about a month. It changed already. We're actually 20 cents lower than we were this time last year.
Jeez.
So if you look up the November chart for, November 22, we went into the year, January was fairly low, and then all of a sudden, February, it just started to climb and climb and climb. I think it was like a $3 rally or something like that. So my fear still is, though, that, okay, we're 20 cents lower, but we've already got up into this range of where we were last year after the big run-up. We started at this point before the run-up. So, there's two trains of thought. One, the optimistic is going to say, oh, well, we're already here. We're going to run up another $3, so we're going to have $16 beans.
That's the half full.
That's the half full. The half empty is, oh, crap, we're already here. We've got nowhere to go but down now. And production, this planting season will make or break this price is what's really going to happen. We've still got all the, you can call them black swans in the world going on right now if you want. The Ukraine, all that turmoil over there. More countries are starting to buddy up with their allies, and you're really starting to see how this thing's going to shake out possibly. You've got that. You've got China, who's now starting to come back online finally. They finally just basically dropped the lockdowns, but they got a population decline.
Which is the first time in maybe ever.
Yeah, I mean, well, and I think they there was one note that a province there said you can have unlimited children now.
Yeah, they're back to having unlimited children.
Yeah. But we're talking about that's a generational shift. I mean, that the population doesn't fix itself overnight. So who knows what that does to the demand world right now.
You mentioned Ukraine. We've talked about that just several times on the podcast. I mean, that's been a pretty current event since we've been doing the podcast. And his name's Peter Zihan, and he has a podcast. And I was watching that, and he said he kind of put it in perspective, and he put the Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia kind of put those into one group. Those three warring nations into one group, and he said that as a group, they're the number one wheat exporter. And if you looked at even by separately, the number one wheat exporter, Russia, invaded the number 5 wheat exporter. And how come these wheat markets haven't really, I kind of wonder why they haven't taken off, because we can raise in the Eastern Corn Belt, we can raise pretty good wheat, and this far south, we can follow with fairly good double crop soybeans. I know that makes us busy in June and early July, but I'm surprised that the wheat market hasn't taken off more.
So I did talk to one farmer who's planting more wheat than they have in the past. And I was talking about new crop bean prices. I'm like, and this is a guy that's very good at setting targets. The last couple of years, I mean, I'd have to go back and look at his average, but I feel very confident in that he had one of the best average farm price when he takes all of his bushels together, and he delivered all of those bushels in fall, and he still beat most of what people are going to get out of their crop. So he did a very good job marketing his crop, getting the targets in. But I was asking him, I was like, what about these bean targets? I really think we probably ought to get something in. And he goes, well, my sons don't really want us to do anything with the beans right now because we've got more wheat out and we're going to have a lot of double crop beans. So we don't feel great about that just yet. We're going to take a wait and see approach on that. So that's one instance. That's just one person, but I'm kind of with you. I mean, if the wheat market incentivizes people to plant it, it's going to buy the acres. It's hard. I mean, we always talk about an acre shift, but it's really hard to shift those acres in a monumental way because people like planting corn and they like planting beans.
And at least in our neck of the woods, the wheat comes in 50 and 100 acres. I mean, it doesn't come in great big chunks.
Yeah.
Okay. You had some other notes.
Yeah.
We cut you off.
Well, we've spent time talking on beans. Last time I said we were $1.20, and now we're 20 cents lower. Well, corn, we're still 20. Well, last night at the close, we were 22 cents higher than we were at this point last year. So corn is still trading at a higher rate. Dees, 23 was trading higher than the Dees 22 at this point in the crop cycle. So we're still in favorable territory for that. We're not in unfavorable territory for beans, but it puts a different spin on the thing on how quickly that ran up. So, right now for this time frame, last time I was here, corn was traded around 650. Futures now we're up to 675. We had up to 685 right after that report hit. Beans, we're around that 1480. We're at 1530s now. had gotten up to 1540. So we're knocking on the door for beans of the high for the year, and for a long time, really, on beans. I mean, last time I said we had a hard time getting back to where we were before the end of the year. Well, this report, one of my fears is that it dropped this big bullish card in our lap, and we're still struggling to break that point where we were before the end of 22. So that is a watch out to me. That looks like the market already has some of these things factored into it price wise. Again, this is all speculation. This is not what I do for a living.
This is when we flash the big disclaimer on the
this
screen.
this is a big disclaimer. This is fun to talk about, and guys like to talk about it. But bringing up what I do and how we try to help the farmer as Premier, after these reports, we send out notes. I send out notes as to what the report said and what that potentially means and where we're trading and what that kind of looks like for new crop. So if you're interested in that, get a hold of us. It's free. You sign up through Bushel, and we can send out those notifications. Give us, we can give out notes as far as what our local area looks like and how that'll play out for your farm too.
Good. And that comes through the Bushel app?
Yep, through the Bushel app, completely free. If you do sign up, make sure you get a hold of somebody so that we can put you in the right group so you're getting the stuff the information that you want.
Closer to Lagodi or...
Yeah, closer to Lagodi, or if you're closer to Columbus. Yep.
Okay. What else you got for us?
I think that's really about it. I mean, I've got more notes, but it's just kind of the market. This report was a big deal. The next big one is going to be in March, the prospective planning report. That's going to be the big one. These prices incentivize corn and beans. So we'll see what happens. I have a hard time seeing that there won't be a lot of corn acres planted if spring is, nice to us and lets us get the corn acres in the ground. I mean, when you're talking almost $7 corn, it's really hard not to pencil in a pretty big corn acre number.
Yep. So, you'd have to think so.
Yeah.
Sure. We didn't want to say anything else to your wife before we close this podcast. I mean, you kind of just, you looked in the camera and kind of left your wingman out here hanging as you were.
Hey, it's fun for yourself, man.
It's all about me and you till it gets down to me and you, then it's about you, right?
10-year anniversary this year. I got to step it up. So
we're going to get her for Valentine's Day. You going to get her flowers or?
So you weren't supposed to ask me that.
Does she watch the podcast?
This was the gift. Hi, sweetie.
Oh, she'll want to send that back. No way she'll keep that.
Yeah. No, but market-wise, everyone, they want to watch the Weather Channel, know what's going on in Brazil, Argentina, here in the U.S. Right now, we're going to be in a pattern of a lot of the rumors, and that's what we'll be trading. We won't be trading any hard facts for a little bit longer. So,
okay. Well said.
All right. I think that's it. All right, Aaron. Thanks for coming. Sal.
That's all I got. Welcome to. Thank you for listening. It's been another episode of The High Ground, powered by Premier Companies. Please like and subscribe. Thanks.